For today's project we're going to be painting the Skorpekh Lord. I've started off with a white undercoat because of the yellows that are going to be used later on, which makes it easier for painting the yellows. I've started off with using Uriel yellow first on the yellow areas. Afterwards you'll notice I'm using Seraphim Sepia, and depending on where I'm applying the shade will determine whether I'm covering the upper or the lower part of the area I'm painting on. The intent here is that the sepia is used to reflect the lower areas rather than the upper areas where light would hit the part in question. And in this piece of the video I'm using the sepia again, only this time I'm using it in the center of the hip and also for the spine areas. And you can see how afterwards I've turned the miniature upside down. The reason why I've done this is to encourage the paint to flow in a certain direction. Now I'm using Agrax Earthshade, and what I'm wanting to do here is to help to improve the distinction between the darker areas at the bottom and the lighter area of the top where it's more yellow. And for the joint areas I've done it the opposite way around, so I've kept that dark area at the very top rather than, so it has a more subtle blend between from the very dark to the sepia and then to the yellow. This just gives you a quick look at how it looks so far. I'm now using Phalanx Yellow to highlight the top of the spine areas, and also I will use this to pick out down the sides of the edges as well, which just helps add a little bit of extra detail, and it's shown where certain areas are going to be lighter. And once that last coat is dry, next we're using Dawn Yellow. This time though I'm just covering the very top of the spines, I'm not applying it down the sides. The two previous colours were used in other parts of the miniature as well, just to pick out areas where I think light would hit it, to represent that, the light catching in different areas. After this was done, Seraphim Sepia was used on the areas where it's the lightest to go into the recesses to again add a level of a texture of detail. And then after that Agrax Earthshade was used in the same areas, but only the Agrax Earthshade is used at the bottom, where the Seraphim Sepia is used at the top of these areas to try and pick out that detail and make it stand out. This part here underneath where the vertebrae are is particularly hard to get to, so what I did as a way of getting in there, because a paintbrush just won't get inside that area and I obviously don't want it to still look white, so what I did is I used a lot of water and then a small amount of Corvus Black applied into the water, and basically you apply the load into the area and the water will naturally want to run into the area. Once the water's had time to evaporate, it will leave the paint behind, and therefore the paint will settle into the area where otherwise you can't reach with a brush. So as mentioned, Corvus Black was used for the black areas. Then for areas like the cables and parts on the weapons, Corax White was applied. Lastly, for the orbs and also the eyes, White Scar was used. For adding highlights to the black areas, I started off with Scaven Blight Dinge first. You'll see some of the areas I've put a long line in to reflect how light might be catching onto the areas, and I've also used it to pick out some of the edges as well. After this process was finished, Mechanicus Standard Grey was applied into the same areas, only just thinner lines. Rust Grey was thinned down with some water first and then applied into the recesses to make the recesses look darker. And this was done to all the areas where we previously applied the Corax White. Next, for the large blade and also the finger blades, I started off with Venetian grey first. Then afterwards rust grey was used in a smaller area, and once the paint was dry, Lothern blue, which was watered down with water, was then applied into the area. By painting it this way, some of the colours underneath will actually show through the blue itself, giving it more tones of colour. The orbs that were previously painted with the white scar have now had flash skits yellow applied over to the areas, and once that was dry, Veregan orange was applied into the area, which will naturally want to settle down into the crevices of those areas. And for these last three parts that are on the front of the chest, they previously had the white applied into the area, and I'm now using Nighthawk Gloom just to finish off the miniature. If you like the video, remember to subscribe to help the channel, and also send links to your friends.